Hi there! Let me start by saying this is not going to be a classic model building video. Think of it more like a logbook documenting my struggle with a difficult, low-detail model. My goal isn't to say this is how to build this model, but to give you some ideas and inspiration. As you can see, the kit's cabin and cockpit parts are lacking in detail. My advice is to get the Edwards set. I couldn't get the set because of the ridiculous customs regulations in my country. Sorry Edward, I used your drawing as template and tried to add a bit of detail. And what's worse is that international shopping might be completely banned in my country in the near future. The world has started experiencing absurd things again to protect the interest of a small privileged minority. There is nothing I can do but wish everyone a peaceful and healthy future. Anyway, let's get back to the model. At one point I gave up and decided to design the missing interior details and get them 3D printed. As you can see, I also modeled the floor, ceiling, sidewalls along with the GAU-21 mount and the M3M gun. Frankly, I could have finished an entire kit in the time I spent on this, but as I explained, I choose this path for the reasons I mentioned. As I said, the Edwards set is the most reasonable solution. Here are the printed parts and kit parts side by side. Since the rotor and engines will be attached to the ceiling, I need the main body of the rotor and one engine at this stage to plan for a proper assembly. And here you have Reskit detail sets. Reskit sent me these sets to review. Of course, they came in separate packages and as a gift to pass through customs. By the way, I realize I also need to work on the folding tail detail for assembly planning. After determining where to cut, I use a needle and a saw to make a precise cut and separated the tail from the fuselage. The second issue is that Academy only provides the left engine open. The right engine cowling is closed. To cut and separate the right cowling, I first cut a template from the left side. Why didn't I cut a template from the cowling? Because for the two fuselage parts to be symmetrical, when placed side by side, I need to mirror the part on the fuselage. A thin sewing needle is the best tool for this kind of precise cuts. The rotor and engines are resin casting molded from 3D prints. This means there is a lot of cutting to do. The most effective method against resin dust is to use water. Of course, cutting while filming means my cuts are a little sloppy. Things are getting a bit messy. I advise you to wear gloves. I will put them on after filming. This is the main engine part. The fit of the parts is good, but extensive cutting and sanding are necessary. If you cut delicate parts like this with the right tool, you won't have any problems. Instead of cutting in one go, I am cutting the supports one by one. Also, the resin they use is quite flexible and forgiving. I decide to finish the engine completely. By the way, there's a small mistake. This part is molded incorrectly. It's supposed to have a hollow like this. I will cut this out and simply put a piece in its place. You might not be able to find soldering wires in every thickness, just like me. When you heat copper wire, it becomes as soft as soldering wire. According to the booklet that comes with the set, you need to add a certain amount of wire detail. However, the rail engine has a lot of more cable and hose details. But those are a topic for the next video. For now, I just need a basic engine. I'm sharing the entire main assembly part as a short guide for those who will build this set. I use UV resin to fill the gaps that form. Yes, this engine is complete according to the build guide. Now I can do the assembly planning. As you can see, I temporarily fixed all the interior parts in their places. And I took the sealing measurements and cut this piece from a plastic sheet. This will be the base for the engine and rudder. I also had to cut the engine sidewalls according to this new measurement. As you can see, it's quite deceptive. You need to determine the cutting direction carefully. I put a part representing the front wall and temporarily fixed the engine wall in place. After deciding it was straight, I'm gluing it in place. The same goes for the other part. For a reason I will explain later, you have to cut the air intakes this way. At the same time, I also had to cut the parts on the cowling. They will probably be closed, but it's still good to clean them up. I'm deciding that the rough assembly that will produce a lot of dust and mess is done, and I'm returning to the cockpit and cabin construction. Using the right tools is important for a good result. For the cushion texture, I simply use this method. The variant I'm building also requires changing the doors. Of course, I'm choosing the easy option. The door won't be open. If it were, I'd have to add more detail to the cockpit and the door. But it's still a good idea to add a little detail. In its current state and for this scale, it's unacceptably lacking in detail. I'm starting by gluing a simple piece I cut from a sheet. The clear part is installed from the inside. Don't forget to test it. For the details that will be seen through the thick clear parts, this level is enough, in my opinion. One last small detail. I am carefully gluing the door in place. Instead of filling these parts with putty, I'm simply covering them with a thin plastic sheet. Now it's time to assemble the parts I 3D printed. I'm adding the boot details with this clay called iClay. It's not as moldable as epoxy, but it's enough for this kind of rough work. It dries within a few hours if it stays in contact with the air. Let's add some detail to the extra fuel tank. When making cuts like this, you should learn to use a lock grip on your fingers to avoid cutting yourself. This belt detail needs to be scraped off. I'm simply adding the belt details using masking tape and wire. Guess what this detail is? Fortunately, Academy included the cargo hook detail in the kit. That's a very generous approach. It wouldn't hurt to add some cable and box details to this part. And finally, primer time. I applied the cabin and cockpit colors in sequence. I applied the soundproofing detail with a brush and in a thick layer, so that it would have a different texture true to the original. I brush paint other details as well, then sealed all paint layers with gloss varnish. I gave all parts an overall wash to bring out the details and add weathering. Then I sealed everything with matte varnish. To break up the monotony, I add a bit of post shading. I know it's not hyper-realistic, but I exaggerate these effects so they are visible through the thick glass panels. Let's do a test fit to see how these parts match the fuselage. I haven't even cleaned the flash yet, and the fit is almost perfect. Nice. That's everything I've done so far. The rest will be in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and keep building models. Bye!